Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join our live stream webinar on insurance investments to make sure that you're prepared for your future. To introduce myself, my name is Kyle Clark. I'm an investment advisor here at Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Management, and I'm joined by my colleague, Bryan Miranda, who is also an investment advisor here at GK. And Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you've been doing with your clients.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Like I said, my name is Bryan Miranda. I'm an investment advisor here at Gerber Kawasaki. I'm actually one of the original members, and we're actually celebrating our 10-year kind of anniversary this year as a company, which is pretty exciting. We have, probably about 20 advisors here, and I run our insurance division. So when it comes to, estate planning, life insurance, long-term care, disability planning, I'm pretty much the one to go to coordinate with all our different advisors to help them along that process with their own clients, as well as, kind of dealing with the book of business that I have myself. So things are pretty busy these days.
Great. Thanks, Bryan, for that intro. And the other guest I have with me is Chris Constantini, the founder of Adelphia Insurance. And Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you having me on here. My name is Chris Costantini. I'm the founder of Adelphia Insurance. We are an up-and-coming insurance agency local here in Torrance. We focus and we specialize in personal and commercial insurance. So on the personal end, auto, home, umbrellas, any of your personal needs for insurance, and the commercial side as well for, general liabilities, business liabilities, professional errors and omissions, commercial properties, the whole commercial side as well. And really happy to be here, and thanks for having me, Kyle.
Awesome. Well, thank you for both of you for joining us today on our live webinar. Before we jump into it, I do want to provide our disclosures that everything that we talk about today during our webinar should not be used as personal investment advice or recommendations, and we highly suggest that you work with a licensed professional advisor or professional to determine, your specific financial needs. And with that being said, to kick things off, given everything that has been happening with our national pandemic, we're still working through currently, in addition to the civil unrest and protests throughout our country. It's sad to see all the things that have kind of transpired so far throughout this year. But, in the end, we will grow through this as a country. And most importantly, we'll come out of this stronger than we went in. And we're doing this together. And so for all those watching, if you feel like you have nowhere to kind of turn or someone to talk to about what's going on, we're here for you. We're here to provide you support, stability during this time of uncertainty. So please reach out to us and get in touch with one of our advisors via social media or at our website at gerberkawasaki.com. And, with that and being so much revolving around the uncertainty and unknown, not just on a financial level, but on a personal level as well, today we wanted to provide you real value for people with the tools and education to navigate your complexities of the financial world, including aspects like insurance, which is what we're going to go over and cover today. And so I want to start with you, Chris. On the commercial side, do you think just with insurance, is it as important today as it is ever for businesses in an environment like this?
Yeah, it's a great question. For sure. To answer your question quickly, for sure it is. Right now is probably one of the most important times in history. Just seeing the way life can get turned upside down so quickly is definitely an eye-opener for everyone across the board to, make sure that you're protected properly, what you have, the type of insurance coverage you have on the commercial side, whether you're a business out there on the front end doing retail. You never know when, a situation might come up or an unexpected disaster might hit, fires, earthquakes, lawsuits, a pandemic. So very, very important. I think it's one of the most important times in history and a big, big eye opener. So, yeah.
Definitely. And my initial thoughts as well is that insurance is absolutely important, now more than ever, because there's so much uncertainty, right, with life just in general. And so we've seen the power of that with COVID and how underprepared really individuals are and corporations are to handle times of crisis. And Warren Buffett has a great quote where he says that only when the tide goes out do you discover who's swimming naked. And I think, that couldn't be more true today about the lack of preparation that people have and, with these experiences. And when it comes to financial planning and insurance planning, to have these policies in place that provide you the necessary coverage and protection against uncertainty is critical. And, that's why we have our clients have financial plans in place from an investment standpoint, as well as an insurance standpoint, because life happens too fast, and to be retroactive with these policies and coverage, that takes time in properly setting up these insurance policies in place and to make sure that they're working properly. And Bryan, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think it's more important now than ever to get coverage?
I mean, when you talk about more important or not, I mean, yes, we're dealing with times of COVID right now, but even if we were, let's, go back a few years, having insurance, if you're a parent, if you have any liabilities, if you're a professional who needs some type of disability planning, if you're getting older and you're just worried about kind of carrying your older age, I think it's important regardless of, the pandemic or not. Obviously, with the pandemic going on, it is, emphasizing the need a little bit more because people feel like they need to react to these certain things, right? And it's absolutely important. You need to have some of these coverages involved, on the life side, as well as, with Chris and everything on the property side as well. And like you're saying, you just need to have this as part of your plan. It's something that's necessary, and you just want to have the peace of mind to know that everything's going to be okay in any and all circumstances. So absolutely.
Awesome. And, Chris, what kind of with the environment that we're seeing with insurance companies, approving customers for insurance, do you feel that it's become easier or more difficult to get insured today than it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, as far as getting on the property side, the commercial side, the approval process, for the most part, has not been affected too bad. It's still running fairly smoothly. We have seen some tightening up with on the business side. Several coverages like business interruption coverage, or the liabilities have tightened up a bit, just because when there is civil unrest, with everything going on, it obviously is going to be a little bit harder for a company to assess and underwrite that risk. So it's kind of the same concept or scenario as if there's a wildfire up in Malibu or something like that, and people are looking for homeowners insurance once there's already a fire going. It's kind of tough to get coverage then. So yeah, it's tightened up a little bit, but for the most part, it's running pretty smoothly and not too bad. So still moving.
That's great. And, Bryan, this falls in alignment with the previous question, but specifically for life insurance, do you see any kind of macro changes for insurance when it comes to qualifying and getting coverage for life policies?
So right now, we really haven't seen much of a stall in terms of getting approvals in. Insurance carriers inherently want the policies being applied for. They want to help people. One thing that I do see is that when it comes to underwriting, it's not so much that people are being declined. It's just that it takes maybe a few days longer for everything to kind of happen, because you got to remember that the actual insurance companies, they're dealing with COVID themselves, and they have people kind of working from home as well. So what used to be, taking maybe a week or two, maybe just tack on an extra week. But overall, it hasn't actually stopped anybody from being approved. It's just the processing, the timelines involved are a little bit delayed. But, when it comes to these type of things, you got to just, what else are you doing right now? You have plenty of time to wait things out at the moment. So might as well just get all your ducks in a row before things do eventually get back to normal, right?
Right, definitely. And Chris, on the commercial liability side, do you think the factors are changing at all when it comes to, the micro factors of the insurance industry?
The micro side of it, I think we will see, in the future, some changes, and it's happening right now. We haven't seen anything just happen just yet, but with the I think the biggest issue that we saw was businesses not being sure if they were covered or not covered when, the civil unrest and the COVID and workers' comp and all these different things across the board. It's just very uncertain. Is a virus or civil unrest going to be a covered, limit on their policy? So we're going to probably see some more transparency up front from carriers. I think that was a big issue, and we might even see down the road some pushback and some pressure on these companies from large corporations that were hit really badly and kind of were impacted worse than others. We're going to see some pressure on the carriers, insurance carriers, to kind of be more transparent and have more upfront clarity on what's going to be covered, specifically when something crazy like this happens.
Definitely, for sure. And so, Bryan, when it comes to things like insurance, and it being essential when it comes to overall planning, is it better to start whether, you're younger, or is it more important to kind of wait until you're older for the proper coverage?
So, there's a lot of different insurances out there. Some are more applicable when you have more, financial flexibility, have more income, more resources. There are certain types of plans that involve certain scenarios. Maybe you're let's say you're a surgeon and you need disability coverage because if you don't have the use of your hands, obviously that's going to affect your income. That's a very narrow niche of people. At the same time, if you're a brand new family and you have little children, if you just bought a home, there are very simple, easy, term policies to look at that don't really require much of a commitment. But I think to, answer the question more broadly, the sooner you're able to kind of address a lot of these issues, the easier it's going to be for you down the road, because of really two main things. One, insurance, just all of them really work out that you're going to be paying much more in premiums overall the later you wait. because applying as a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, that's one set of premiums. I have people who are in their 40s and 50s who are trying to do some of these things and catch up on what they should have done a decade ago, and it becomes a lot more restrictive in nature, and there's less options overall available. So overall, you want to address these as they come. Not every insurance is going to be applicable to each situation, but for the ones that are, you might as well get a handle on it early in the process to save you a few bucks along the road.
For sure. And, for all my clients as well, I've always said that insurance is just one piece to the overall, financial plan. And whether you already have coverage as a young person through your company or on your own, it's really helpful to have an expert to review that policy to make sure it's up to date. And more importantly, it's addressing the needs to ensure, that policy is providing you the coverage for those needs. But there are policies out there that also, in addition, make sense for younger clients as well, for benefits outside of just life insurance coverage. For example, I personally have a insurance policy, more specifically an index universal life policy, and not getting too in the weeds to it, but I contribute, a low monthly premium that provides me a great policy with the benefits and kind of the best of both worlds, in that it provides me the life insurance coverage for my beneficiaries. And, although I don't today have any beneficiaries, when I do decide to have a family, I'm well prepared for my future. Because I started today, like you had mentioned, rather starting early rather than waiting. But alternatively, in my mind as of today, and since my main objective is to build, cash value in a tax efficient manner, the index universal life policy allows me to do just that. And knowing that, this is a long-term process with this policy. And for many of my younger people and clients, life insurance like this makes sense for someone if they're looking for policies that have that flexibility, depending on your needs and goals. And, this is just one example of why life insurance can be a powerful tool for both younger clients, but more importantly, a thing to keep in mind and remember is that it's just one part of the overall financial plan, right? The overall financial picture. And so it should complement every other component that you have. And if you're not sure how those components kind of fit together, that's what advisors here at Gerber Kawasaki do every day with my clients and help them navigate the complexities and show them how all the pieces fit together in your comprehensive financial plan. And so, Chris, I want to go to you now. From your experience, when do you think people should start looking into insurance, and more specifically, what kind of insurance should they start looking into when it comes to commercial liability?
Yeah, definitely. As far as the actual timing of when they should start, it really depends case by case scenario. So when should they start looking and what do they need specifically? The first step there is always to talk with an advisor. We need to understand first and foremost your situation. On the commercial business side, business exposures can be very widely across the board. So it's super important to just start the conversation. Somebody like what we do, we offer a service, a professional service. It's a lot different than, a business, a retail that has products in their stores. There's lots of different exposures out there. So when should they start looking? Immediately, and they should start that conversation from day one, from starting their business, so that they know there's no gaps, there's no leaks in the business, and if something comes up, you don't want to be exposed. So it's like I said, first thing you want to do, start the conversation, have a professional assess your situation, and then from there, hopefully you're working with somebody good who knows what they're talking about, because they'll prepare everything for you properly and make sure you're covered from all different angles. So day one, that's the answer.
Awesome, man. And with so many options out there when it comes to insurance, how does one start the process and figuring out what the best one is, with talking to an advisor and working with a professional?
Yeah. So can you say that one more time, Kyle?
Yeah. With so many, options out there when it comes to insurance, how does one kind of start that conversation to figuring out what the best policy is with the professional and advisor?
Yeah. So it really comes down to, like I said, case by case. So you want to kind of be upfront, you want to be open, and you want to be clear on exactly what your business does and what you plan on doing in the future, so that if you do, let's say, start to grow and change your business into different aspects of, your actual operations, you want to make sure that is protected. How do you go about that? You pick up the phone, you call somebody like me, call somebody like one of you guys that, if it's for the financial side or the life insurance side, and you get that conversation going. And as soon as possible, you don't want to, it's a very big eye opener with what's happened today, that life can change in a minute. And so you don't want to be there once your house is already on fire calling, or your building is already on fire, calling your agent to make sure you have coverage. You want to make sure that beforehand, that you can sleep well at night, have a peace of mind that you're completely protected. So yeah.
Definitely. And with some of those factors, when it comes to insurability, what are some of those factors that you walk through clients with and figuring out the proper coverage?
Yeah, that's another great question. So as far as the insurability, the actual approval on the underwriting for customers or clients that we see on the commercial side, it really, really depends on the situation. We see, claims exposures. If they've already had claim history, that's, a big factor. Seeing that, whether they're going to have claims again in the future, that can depend. That could be a big factor in approving somebody. The actual exposure of their operations, whether it's a service or a product. So it can really vary across the board. But if you have a clean cut business, there should be no real issues and getting approved. And underwriting will typically make it work. If it is a little bit higher exposure, we have the markets available that we can go to non-standard companies and a little bit of higher risk placed companies. So for the most part, I'm not saying everything is insurable, but we can likely find a plan that fits and works for whatever business it might be, unless it's just way too out there. And then, those situations, it's hard to say exactly.
For sure. And with Bryan, going to you now, with so many options kind of out there when it comes to life insurance and different policies, how do you go about that process with your clients? And what are some of the factors that you walk through in order to make sure you are insurable?
Yeah, so I mean, that question, we can kind of break that down into two. First off, where you start this whole process is with your financial planner. We do comprehensive financial planning here for a reason, is because just because your investments might not be doing, set up in a certain way, you may not be addressing all the different things you need to be looking at, the insurances, the type of accounts you have. So it's a very mixed bag based on every single situation that's out there. So first and foremost, I mean, my email's on there, Kyle, your email's on there somewhere too. Get in touch with your advisor. They should be going through these things with you anyways, because of how important it is, regardless of the situation you're in. Each one's going to be slightly different. So they should be able to evaluate what's important to you, match that up with your goals, match that up with your income, your savings plans, what your situation is, to come up with, kind of an optimal solution for you. And then in terms of, the second part of your question about insurability, obviously the younger you are, the more likely it is that you're still healthy. The older you get, there's problems that can arise that can kind of throw out certain qualifications that you might have depending on the insurance that it is. One question that was from earlier is, when should you start? Well, long-term care planning, the earliest age you can even start on that one is 35. So there are certain restrictions on some type of plans out there that say you got to wait. But there are others where you could address now, take care of, and while you're insurable, while you're in the best shape of your life, you might as well try and lock in some of these things now. Because one thing that you may not know, as soon as you're approved for coverage, they cannot take it away from you later down the road, unless there's some type of a fraud involved or whatever it may be. But if you're healthy, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, you may as well take some of the steps to lock some of that in, because who knows what the future holds. That's the whole point of the insurance, is that we don't know what could happen down the road. And it's not always just life or death. It could be life or sickness. And there's a handful of clients that I unfortunately come across that they do get older. They call me, say, hey, I want to, set up some of these plans. And unfortunately, some carriers just won't even accept them anymore because of things that they could have done a decade ago, theoretically. So the earlier, the better. The more healthy you are, the better. That's pretty much what I'm going with.
Awesome. Now I want to take some time. We did get some questions submitted to us from our audience. And Chris, I think this is a great question for you. With there being a considerable amount of damage and destruction to small businesses as a business owner, what are the steps that you can take today to make sure that you're prepared for future events to come?
Totally. Great question, because that was a big uncertainty for a lot of business owners. They were not sure. And one of the big points that you want to focus on is, or two big points actually, we want to focus on is business interruption insurance coverage within your policy, and also business personal property for, all your, whether if you have equipment, products in your business and in a retail shop, if it's getting damaged, stolen, and you can't operate. So those are the two main coverages that you want to make sure that you have in place. Definitely check in with your agent. Give me a call. Happy to help and answer those questions. And a lot of people, there's two types of customers that I see pretty regularly. It's the ones that trust their agent completely to make sure that those things are in place and aligned, and the ones that really like to learn the coverages themselves. And not everybody has the time to do that always. So it's super important to work with somebody who's going to understand your situation and know that those two are massive coverages especially when it comes to some crazy stuff going on in the world like this today. So
right. Awesome. And with another question we have for Bryan, as it pertains to life insurance, can I still buy life insurance during COVID-19? And how, can I go about that? Will life insurance premiums increase due to COVID?
Yeah, so great question. We've kind of got that a lot. So the application process to get in, that hasn't changed. So everybody can apply. Like I said, there's still some precautions that people are taking in terms of the timelines. So one thing to note is that, for example, while we're in COVID, a lot of insurance carriers, whether it's disability or life insurance, whatever it may be, they are asking to submit kind of a statement of health along with the rest of underwriting, just to attest to the fact that you haven't experienced anything, you haven't been diagnosed with any type of COVID-related illnesses. Just as if you were to walk into a restaurant, they ask you, have you been out of the country? Have you been exposed to anybody with COVID? Have you tested positive? Do you have antibodies? They're going to ask some of these questions just to be thorough and do their due diligence there. But overall, they are still approving people. I've had a lot of success in the last few months with onboarding a lot of these cases, getting from application to approval in not too long of a time frame. And then the latter half of your question was asking about the premiums. So premiums haven't gone up because of this. Now, the way that they work, at least on the life insurance side, is premiums are basically regulated by insurance regulatory bodies, where maybe the beginning of each year, normally January, maybe every other year, they'll kind of do a premium check to see kind of if all the different carriers are competing in the same space, seeing if they're all somewhat competitive with the products that they're offering. So we probably won't see that happen again until maybe next January. But even with that being said, you got to remember that, yes, we have obviously this pandemic, and we have, at least in the US, 125 plus thousand people who have, passed away. You got to remember that there's a lot of people who have been staying at home. So maybe the auto accidents, around the country have decreased. Maybe the other things that would otherwise boost mortality haven't been affected. So to, shorten that answer up, no, the premiums haven't changed. In my opinion, I don't think they will change too much. They don't vary by much each year. And you should be able to apply with a pretty fair, deal.
Great. And I think this is the final question that we're going to take. This is, again, for you, Bryan, from someone that submitted, hey, I'm in my 30s. My parents have policies that I don't know how they work or how they best fit them. How would you approach this conversation with my parents about these policies?
Great question. I've had my own challenges dealing with my own parents about some of these things over the years, so I feel I could answer that pretty easily. Life insurance, estate planning, long-term care, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have anyways, right? It's not exactly the most fun thing to talk about. It's not dinner table talk. And overall, discussions about money in general within families has always been somewhat taboo, right? And I just think that you should be somewhat upfront with, the older generations out there, your parents' generation, because in the end, we just want to make sure that whatever was planned, whether it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, a lot of our parents would have set something up in the, 80s and 90s. And just because they set it up and they thought it was going to be great for them originally, doesn't necessarily mean that it's performed or done exactly what it's needed to. So I see these all the time where, we take a look at somebody's parents' plan and they say, oh, I was set up, like things are good, don't need to worry about it. And we take a look and we call the insurance carrier and it looks like the policy may lapse. It looks like it's running on fumes and they just didn't even know about it. So I would say, as uncomfortable as it may be, you just have to at least bring up the conversation. Make your parents, to whoever asked that, start evaluating, look into it a little bit deeper, because in the end, we as the next generation, we're going to be the ones to bear the burden of some of those decisions, right? So we may as well, check off all the boxes that we possibly can with it, make sure they're set up. And it's not just life insurance either. It's estate planning, make sure everything's properly in trust, make sure that long-term care planning is taken care of for your parents' generation, because medical costs are only increasing. So when you look at people who have unfortunately had to put their parents into some type of a facility or have in-home care services, these costs are only rising over time. And a lot of that is starting to eat into otherwise IRAs, 401ks, savings plans, real estate, and it throws off the entire plan. So I'm not saying there's any changes that need to be made directly, but at least open up the conversation, make sure that everything is set up correctly and will continue to be set up, because you're going to be the one that has to deal with it anyways. So you might as well deal with it today rather than when it becomes just far too late. So good luck with it though. And then the last part of that is, because you have the dynamic within the family that it becomes uncomfortable, talk to your advisor. Have a third party involved there that can be independent, they can evaluate, and even not even have the parent, child, and advisor in the conversation. Maybe you just have the parent and the advisor handle whatever is needed, knowing that in the end, it's still in the best interest of all, both the parent and the child there. So sometimes it's just too tough to have, that conversation with everybody. So just, we can handle it, take some of the burden off you. I mean, that is our job to look into these things. So may as well get that ball rolling.
Definitely. And for our clients, their biggest resources is having someone to talk through, with an investment advisor, because these are large decisions, large life decisions. And so looking for the proper coverage that you need in order to make sure, you have the preparation for the unknown is critical. And that's why it's so important now, when you're trying to pull and figure out all these moving pieces, having someone that can walk through with you to figure out how those fit within your overall financial plan and your family's financial plan. And so consulting with a professional like myself, like Bryan, like Chris, is going to be essential, especially during difficult times with COVID and civil unrest and a lot of uncertainty moving forward. And so, just to wrap things up, Chris, where can we find more information about you and your company to consult with a professional like yourself?
Yeah, so you could reach me on our website, Adelphia, www.adelphiainsurance.com. You can also find us on major social medias, Facebook. You could type in Adelphia Insurance, we should pop up. Instagram, Adelphia Insurance as well. Posting lots of good content on there, little nuggets of information also on what's going on and day to day. So if you want to reach us, feel free to find us on our website or social media as well.
Great. And for those interested in reaching out to an investment advisor here at Gerber Kawasaki to provide assistance with insurance, financial planning needs, please reach out to us through our website at gerberkawasaki.com or direct contact us. Our information is on this live webinar, as well as on our website and social media platforms. And so with that, we just want to thank everyone for joining our live stream today. Please stay safe and healthy during these times, and take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys. Take care.